Coomer?
Dr. Stites, thanks for joining me.
What? You're joining me.
No, you're joining me today.
No, it's Open Mics with Dr. Stites. You're joining me.
Get the memo. It's
No,
Coomer.
wrong.
Doctors, you're co-hosting. Stick to the script, please.
What's going on?
What? I'm not co-hosting with you.
I'm not co-hosting with you.
Oh, jeez. What is this? Like Christmas? I have to give away the stage here? No
Who
way,
did
man.
this?
I don't know. Not my idea. It must have been yours.
Not my idea.
You're gonna have to share the spotlight, doctors.
Unbelievable.
Well, can I go first?
I think we're gonna have to roll an encore till they figure out who's on first.
All right, everybody. Let's cue up the holiday encore of Open Mics with Coomer and Stites.
And by the way, you know it is Stites and Coomer. None of this Coomer-Stites stuff. I'll show you how it's done, starting with the slouch.
Uh-oh. Stites is slouching again.
Good morning, I'm Dr. Steve Stites, Chief Medical Officer here at the University of Kansas Health System and Executive Vice Chancellor at the University of Kansas Medical Center. Welcome back to Open Mics with Dr. Stites. Sometimes you need to lose a limb to save a life. Think back to the Civil War. Surgeons would amputate early and amputate often. Obviously, medicine has come a long way, but there are still hundreds of amputations happening every day in America, largely toe and lower leg amputations related to diabetes or cardiovascular disease. But today we're meeting a veteran whose ankle injury simply wasn't healing. Amputation was an option. But doctors at the Veterans Administration Hospital trusted one of our surgeons at the health system to try and salvage that limb. And he did. Well, the team did. We're learning how that happened and what it means for the man who is still living with both of his feet. Later, we're going to check in with Doc Hawk. We'll talk a little bit about COVID, flu shots, and ask about the latest human case of bird flu in Missouri. But first, we're talking with Dr. Charles Christopher Jaley. Now, J-E-H-L-E. Jaley, I said it right that time. That's impressive. We're just going to say Dr. J, a hand, nerve, and microsurgeon here at the health system. And we're happy to be talking with one of his patients, Doug Fiedler. I knew I was going to do that one wrong. Man, I rehearse these names before we each have this program, and I still don't always get them right. Doug Fiedler is still recovering from surgery on his ankle. But the important fact is, both his feet are also here. He's here with his wife, Billy. Thank you so much to both of you for being here. I love your Chiefs shirts, by the way. Let's go Chiefs. I like that. Let's go Royals. Let's go Chiefs. That's awesome. So Doug, you hurt both your ankles 4 months ago. I want to go back up and hear about your time in the Army. So first of all, thank you for your service.
Thank you.
Tell us a little bit about what you did in the Army.
I went in the Army after high school in '73, and I did retire from the military. We were stationed in Korea and Germany. Halfway through my career, I spent 3 years on drill sergeant status at Fort Leonard Wood, and probably my funnest 3 years. Mm-hmm. But it fit my personality. But anyway, after that, they offered me to go straight to skip W1, go W2, and I did, and I finished my career as a warrant officer, and had a good career.
That's great. How many years were you in the Army?
20.
That's a long time. And what's a war?
I would have stayed in longer if I hadn't got hurt in Desert Storm.
So what happened in Desert Storm?
I got knocked off a tank.
That
and it messed
sound
up my
like
back
fun.
and my legs.
Okay. And was that during the battle or something
Yeah.
that happened? Okay.
Yes, it was.
Is that how you earned your Purple Heart?
Yes, it is.
All right. And so that was back in the 80s, if I remember my hit.
91.
Okay, I couldn't quite remember when Desert Storm took place.
It's been a while.
Yeah. So how did you manage day-to-day life with that injury you had?
Well, they put me in leg braces. First, it was just the leg that got hurt the worst, and I had a couple surgeries on it. And but I started favoring it so much I wore out the other one.
Okay.
So now I'm in both leg braces and dodging as many surgeries as I can. Some of them you just can't help.
Yeah.
Thank God for Dr. J. Lee and Dr. Smith at the VA hospital.
So, Billy, from your perspective, how is Doug doing with all those knee injuries?
He's doing good. This last break in his ankles was probably the hardest that we've been through.
Okay.
Because he was so limited,
Right.
on mobility, and that was hard for him to accept, I guess. And it was hard mentally too, because he's used to getting up and moving around and couldn't for quite a long time.
I've known y'all for about 10 minutes, and I don't think you sit still very well, do you?
No,
No. You couldn't really
that
do
was the hardest part. They kept me, it was numbed up, so I never really felt the pain.
Yeah.
You know, it was more the sitting and what am I going to do now? And, you know, you only can watch so many shows on TV.
That
and
would drive me crazy.
so,
Yeah.
and I don't know what I would do with my angel because I couldn't have made it without her
Yeah.
through my whole life pretty much. But
Is this your angel right here?
It is my angel.
I get that. Yeah.
We'd get
Y'all
him in a
been
wheelchair and I'd push him all around the VA hospital.
just to get me out of my room.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. So
get him going.
fast forward to May of 2024, you broke both ankles. Now I'm thinking you didn't fall off a tank, so how did that happen?
You know, it's a good question. We were down in Alva, Oklahoma, visiting her niece who graduated from college, and we were down there. And I got tired after the graduation, so she took me back to the hotel room, and I lay down and took a nap. But she had forgot her key card, so she called me and said, "I'm on my way. Can you open the door when I knock?" Somehow I got up and didn't have my braces or had socks on, and I opened the door, and somehow or another, between when I opened the door and she came in, I fell.
Okay.
And
We think when
don't
he
know why.
turned.
We don't know if it's when I turned, if the door caught air and knocked me down, but it knocked me down, and I don't remember much after that.
Wow. So what do you think happened?
I don't know if his knee gave out, you know, as he
Yeah.
turned, because that's happened before. That's why he always wears his leg braces. Or if he slipped, you know, turning, having socks on. We really don't know what happened. It's a confined space, you know, not very wide. And you could tell right off the bat that his foot was broken because it was hanging off. And
Oh, that
it
sounds
looked
horrible.
horrible, yeah. And so at first they just thought he broke the one ankle. They medevaced him to Wichita to Wesley Hospital, and so they went in and put hardware on both sides of the ankle, had to go in from both sides of his left ankle and firm it up with that. And the next day the occupational therapist came and was going to get him up on the good foot and show him how to kind of maneuver, and he was like, ow, 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 which he doesn't do too much because he has neuropathy in his feet, so he doesn't always feel a lot. And so they came down, the ortho did, and she's like, no, it's not bruised, it's not swelling, it looks okay, and let's just do an x-ray and we'll see. And then they came back and said, we got to do surgery tomorrow. That one's broke and it's got a big old gap, so we got to put hardware on that side too.
So you do get most of your care at the VA. What were your doctors telling you about your ankles?
I don't remember a lot. You know, I got caught part of it that Dr. J. Lee was going to be involved, and they were trying to figure out whether I would be a candidate for the surgery. And we didn't know anything about the surgery. You know, some people were telling me, you know, you're probably going to lose your foot and half your leg because of it.
My.
And you know, it was a scary time for me.
Yeah.
I mean, I just couldn't imagine. And then my other angels appeared, Dr. Smith and Dr. J. Lee, and saved my foot.
Does your family think you're an angel?
I don't know. It probably depends a little bit on the day.
Yeah.
Yeah, I got to know Mr. Fiedler when he was in the VA. Dr. Smith was his orthopedist, and like you said, Dr. Stites, it's always a team effort.
Yep.
And through like our residents who rotate over there and the orthopedists, what had basically happened was an infection kind of was introduced into the system. And in addition to the infection, there was a non-healing open chronic wound that went down into the ankle joint with hardware. And so you start adding these other areas of complication where you have bacteria in a joint where the
With
body
hardware.
can't. And then hardware.
That doesn't
Yeah.
sound good.
So those are the things that kind of catalyzed my involvement. And like it said, a lot of times the best option, or kind of an option to hasten recovery, is actually amputation, because kind of the traditional feeling is, all right, every day that you're in bed is how many days or weeks of rehabilitation. Anything we
Right.
can do to hasten that period to rehabilitation. In his case, we had the required orthopedist and our team at KU on the plastic surgery side and the whole microsurgery side. to be able to remove that hardware safely, have a good long-term orthopedic plan, and then cover it with good durable soft tissue that could deliver the antibiotics that were needed to the joint.
Wow, so that's a big part of it, is that whole thing about getting antibiotics into the joint required some type of a flap. I think we have some photos from the case. Now, a quick warning for our audience. One photo has some blurred and red flesh in it. So let's kind of walk through this. First, the ankle wound that wouldn't heal, is that right?
Yeah, and this is, akin to an iceberg, where it might seem like a fairly small issue on the surface, and it had this for many weeks, and multiple efforts have been made to close this wound up. And the ankle is a unique part of our body where we have a paucity of skin, we have a paucity of soft tissue under it. I mean, if you reach down and touch your ankle now, it's pretty amazing how little tissue there really is between
around that. Yeah,
the
it's like
outside
your knuckle
wall.
or something.
And you introduce a fracture and hardware to it, then you've got kind of a recipe for complication.
Because the only covering is just that little bit of skin.
That's right.
Yeah, if anything happens there, that's a problem. Of course, the skin's been open when you put the hardware in. So, well, let's take a look. There's the arm where you plan to take some skin, and I see some purple dots. Is that the marking of the blood vessel? What is that?
Yeah, so this is Mr. Fiedler's arm. That's the radial artery that's been marked out, and when you bring that new tissue down to the leg, you need to make sure it stays alive on its blood supply. Now, we have two large arteries that give blood to our hand, and the majority of people are dominant with the other of the two arteries, so you can borrow it.
Yeah. All right, so, and you can even show us where they borrowed that from. Is that right? If the camera can zoom in on that arm for just a moment, there we go. Now, the next photo is the flap from the arm that was placed on the ankle. Now, was this before or after? Tell us what this is. What's going on?
This
there.
was during the surgery itself. So again, working as a team, our residents were helping both work on the ankle and the arm at the same time, where you have to raise the skin, that fat that we have underneath our skin, and importantly, a kind of shrink wrap covering that sits underneath that called the fascia. And these are all elements to our skin that we can bring back down on the blood vessel that feeds it. And so then on the ankle, we brought out the blood vessels that help feed the leg, and very much like plumbing, under a microscope, plug those into those blood vessels so that blood can go into the flap and come out of the flap and back to the body.
Okay, fast forward a couple of months, and here's how the ankle and the arm have healed. So yeah, let's look at that together up on the camera there. So the skin from the arm went to the ankle, but how did you replace the skin on the arm?
Yeah, so the skin and the soft tissue underneath the skin, so that fat and that fascial layer were all brought up in one large piece with the blood vessel and put on the ankle. And then it's like robbing Peter to pay Paul. You have to make sure Paul can afford it. We left enough on the arm that we were able to bring a skin graft from the leg and replace it. So it's a little bit of, Russian doll situation.
This
where
is
you're
trading
like,
places is what this is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Did you take the skin from the ankle and put it up there where you were putting the other skin, or other different spot?
from a different spot.
Okay.
In his case, it was
All
the
right.
thigh.
And can I just say, is that ankle upright? That's him kind of standing on the leg with that last picture we saw a moment ago?
So in that picture we saw a moment ago, he was sitting down, kind of sideways there. But
That looks like $1 million compared to the other picture.
It's much better than before, and
Yeah.
I think most importantly, it very much filled me with hope and just made me really happy to watch him walk out at his last appointment he had with me.
Did you walk out of that appointment?
I did. Walked in, walked out.
Man,
So-
okay, right there. That's a big deal. That's Mahomes to Kelsey to win the Super Bowl right there. Actually, it's bigger than that.
Like I said, I am so thankful for Dr. J. Lee and Dr. Smith that I've got a foot and a leg. I just
And
would
hand.
never imagine that was me,
Yeah.
And
But
that
boy, they
everything-
just couldn't have filled me with two better doctors.
Yeah.
And everything healed good with his diabetes because we worried about that.
Yeah,
The
diabetes
healing.
makes everything hard,
Yeah.
right? It really
Yeah.
does.
So-
yeah.
But they
Well,
took
that's
good care of him.
amazing. Okay, so Dr. Jelly, where does this operation rank in terms of complexity or difficulty?
Yeah. So it's difficult, right? I mean, everything's relative.
Yeah.
In the scheme of, what I do, this is on the more complex side, and, trauma or, these injuries, infections don't always show up the exact same way. So it takes some level of creativity. And again, I think that's the harder part is trying to figure out how you bring something from one place and then fit it in within the confines of his anatomy and those things. So for me, this is one of the more difficult surgeries to do. I don't know, some of our other surgeons who do brain surgery and all those things, maybe it's harder, maybe it's easier, it's hard to know. But
So when you first heard about him, did you think it was all going to work?
well, we're lucky. So limb salvage, as we kind of call this field in general, has about a 90-ish% success rate, which is to say, being able to save.
When I grew up in medicine, it wasn't 90%, so y'all were doing some pretty cool stuff.
Yeah, and I'm happy to say at KU, I actually reviewed our numbers before this just to kind of see where we're at. We're writing some of our experience up over the last several years. We're higher than that by a pretty substantial amount. And
That's
so I'm very,
outstanding.
very pleased that we've got the team and all the equipment and all the resources necessary here to do
And
it.
all those people, the nurses at the bedside, physical therapists, they all got to be focused on doing this the right way.
Yeah, yeah. And I mean, even in the operating room, like
Yes.
it requires a very specific set of tools and a microscope, and the people who prepare the instruments, prepare the microscopes, get everything set up. I mean, it's a huge endeavor, and the fact that it just kind of goes off, choreographed is, I think of it kind of as my version of a patient going on
play.
bypass, right? It's like an everyday
Absolutely.
miracle. How is it
is an everyday
happening
miracle.
every day? It's pretty cool.
So Doug, what was the recovery like for you?
It was hard because I had to stay sitting. And I felt bad because Billy did everything in the world for me. And
Okay.
needless to say, she's always been there for me, but this just was really hard that I couldn't do. And I just hated pushing everything off on her. But recovery, it wasn't painful. It was just the thing about not being able to get up
Yeah.
and walk.
Yeah, you don't feel like you're contributing.
That's exactly what it felt like.
Yeah, and I bet you're one of those people who always has to be the one who contributes a lot.
No, she usually is, I'll be honest. I may find something to do, but if it comes to something more serious, she's the one that always does it.
He
All
just
right.
likes to be in charge of everything.
I-
and then he
I
felt
th-
like he didn't have the
I get that right there,
full
sir.
control.
Don't leave me hanging right here. Don't leave me. There you go. That's what I'm talking. Okay, so Billy, how was this for you and watching him go through all this?
It's hard to watch a loved one, not feeling good, or not being able to do what they had before. And like I said, we had to deal with too this scary part that it could even, end up with not having a foot.
Yep.
And we talked about that we've gotten through a lot worse than that, and we would make it through this, however the outcome turned out to be. But we're very thankful that Dr. J. Lee and Dr. Smith worked together,
Yeah.
the VA hospital and KU Med.
That's awesome. And it should be that way, right? We should be
Right.
working together. So, but I do want to say, you guys are like a little rom-com here. This is very, I love rom-coms. My wife and I sit around and watch those all the time. I understand that you're using a wheelchair to get around. What are your doctors telling you about that? And what's your
Well, we saw Dr. Smith on Monday, and he says it's healing, but it's not all the way healed. So I can walk short distances. I can walk around the house.
Okay.
So, I mean, slowly but surely it's getting better. And
Progress helps.
We got another appointment in 3 months. We'll x-ray it again and see how it's doing.
And
How's the right ankle? Is that the other ankle? How's it?
Don't even pay attention to it.
It's all healed up.
Yeah.
It's doing good. All right. Excellent. Dr. Jaley, in Doug's case and in general, how does saving a limb help somebody's overall health, not just their health of that limb?
Yeah, I think ambulation is a huge part of being able to experience the world. I mean,
Yeah.
despite large efforts, especially in this country, to make things accessible if you are in a wheelchair or have other disabilities, being able to move around in a more native sense is huge and kind of makes things easier in a lot of ways without so many accommodations.
This has been a great discussion. I'm grateful for all of our guests for being here. I'm very grateful for the service that you have to
Thank
our
you.
country. That's awesome. So final thoughts from everybody. Dr. Jaley. And I said it right that time.
Yeah, exactly.
I
No.
am educable, apparently.
No, you're awesome. Final thought, I mean, it's come up 100 times in this conversation in half an hour, like teamwork, right? Everything is always about teams, and our society is getting more and more insular. Having a support network in home, having a support network outside of your home, even within the hospital, always reaching out for help, asking for second opinions. It's always better than trying to do something by yourself. Always.
It really is, isn't it? It is about the team. Billy, final thoughts.
We're just thankful that Dr. J. Lee does this kind of surgery, and that he had enough faith in Doug and Dr. Smith's opinion to go ahead and make him a candidate for it. We really are appreciative.
Yeah. Sir.
And I've told you, there have been 3 people in my life that saved this, and gosh, I hope they can help other people. That's been a biggie for me.
Yeah.
And that's one of the reasons we decided to do it. If it's not us showing what happened to me, but showing there's help for people, and hope other people would start doing it rather than amputate.
Okay, my final question to both of you. First of all, favorite player on the Chiefs?
Oh, I like Kelsey.
Ah, Kelsey.
But I like his
And
brother
Taylor.
more.
Oh, yeah, he's pretty good.
I like Jason.
Jason's favorite player on the Chiefs?
Mahomes, probably.
Mahomes. I know. Okay, here's that. Favorite person you ever had in the U.S. Army? Because that hat means everything. So, favorite person in the Army?
Probably
Who's your
General
hero?
Rutherford. General Rutherford.
Yeah, General Rutherford was a big example for me.
Okay.
And always come and checked on me when I was a maintenance tech for a battalion. He'd always just make sure I had what I needed.
Oh, that's awesome. I think sometimes we don't talk quite enough about the impact of teamwork, and I think you guys have just done a great job talking about that. You know, in a health system every day, there's amazing examples of people who are sacrificing themselves and their days and their work hours, etc., to try and help others. And hats off to our teams here at the health system, the people like Dr. Jaley and Dr. Smith, the nursing team, the OR team, physical therapy team, occupational therapy team, all the folks who help keep us put together.
Yeah, and the residents, the trainees.
The
in a
residents,
place like
absolutely.
it,
The students, everybody.
KU, we're trying to teach people to do the same thing and pass it forward, and they work incredible hours.
And it always takes a team to help save a life. Thanks again to all of our guests and to all of our audience. Remember, hope, faith, and science. Together, we can do just about anything. We'll see you soon.
Subscribe to our Morning Medical Update and Open Mics with Dr. Stites podcast. Now, everywhere podcasts are available.